I turned on the video a little bit too late. I missed some good stuff here, but that's life. Okay, I'm supposed to not clear my throat, I learned. Right now, I'm really tempted to do it non-stop, but you said it's bad for your voice. Would you please explain to us why clearing your throat is bad for us and what we can do instead?
It's a really good question, not just for singers, but for singers it can be a really critical question because if we start clearing our throat and it becomes a habit, and the funny thing about it is it can easily become a habit. What happens if we do it continually is very often we start to get nodes. No one wants nodes. Nodes is one of those black words that no one wants to speak in polite company, or nodules. But that is actually can be a chronic symptom of nodes. And there's a funny phenomenon that occurs when we clear our throat in this way. What happens is that there's a rubbing. Instead of letting the vocal bands come together and vibrate together, it forces them together and they start to rub against each other. And that's important. They rub against each other. A kind of wound starts to appear right at the edge, and then the vocal cords do what if you were shoveling snow for the first time in the season, and you shovel snow for an hour, well, pretty soon you would have a blister. And if you kept doing it, you do what guitar players all have. Then you get calluses, and that's basically what it is. A node is an attempt for the vocal cords to protect themselves against this very violent rubbing that you're doing. You go, well, that's for the cords. That's a big deal, and they need protection. And so on the wound where it's becoming very, very sensitive, and maybe even starting to swell, or maybe there's even like a slight wounding going on, then the callus starts to form to protect the cord. Now, that sounds okay, maybe, but there's a real problem. The cords come together like this. Let's say this is of course just a very, very basic, but let's say you have two vocal cords or vocal bands, and they come together. But if you have a callus there, you have a little thing there that prevents the cords coming together in a clean way. You have either coming together clean here and here you have this bump on your cords, and they can't come together cleanly unless you really push them together, or you have a lot of air pressure. And if you do that, long enough, you won't necessarily hear it, but you're always going to be giving too much energy. You're always going to be slightly using more energy than the cords actually can use for the sort of the unfoldment of the sound that you want in your voice, where everything is just right in balance. Well, it's not in balance anymore because the energy is too much, so the voice still sounds clear. In fact, of the fact that it's not really clear. So, and you think, well, you can get away with this for a while. Well, yes, you can get away with it for a while, but the problem with this is doing this aggravates the situation. And so what happens? You start pushing against it, and then you realize, oh my God, because this thing is here now, it feels like the cords are covered with slime or something that's dripping down. And so because they're not coming together properly, and because they're not coming together properly, then you start to do this some more. Then you get really into it to really get your voice cleaned up again. It doesn't clean up your voice. What it does is it creates more violent rubbing against the cord, and the cord automatically, your body is very, very brilliant, clever, and it starts to add another layer of callus over the other callus to protect it some more. Well, now you've got a bigger bump.
Oh my God.
And the bigger the bump, the more you've got to keep clearing your throat, because you just notice it's always not quite coming together.
Oh.
And we interpret that not coming together as, well, I just have all this slime is coming down, or whatever it is, this. And when this thing happens, man, oh man, we have to kind of recognize it's almost like it's like almost like an addiction kind of phenomenon, where the more you do it, the more you've got to do it, And so we have to kind of be careful when we notice that we're clearing our throat chronically, and that we can not really stop anymore. Then very often this is what's happened. So this is the beautiful thing with the voice. It has a wonderful solution. A lot of singers today, and this is now becoming, unfortunately, very popular, actually among big name singers, also big name pop singers, is if you have nodes, you go and you have them operated on. You have a laser and you have them basically cut into that callous part of the vocal cord to get it on another surface, so it'll start to vibrate cleanly again. I think this is very, very questionable practice, because I think I have a better way, and the better way I have is what a doctor told me many years ago, 40 years ago, when I was as a young singer. I was studying with someone, and I suddenly had nodes. I went to a doctor, and he had nodes. And he gave me just this incredible trick, and that's also part of what we do in True Voice. Amazing what works. If you're doing something that's so basically harmful, and clearing your throat is harmful, then what's the solution? Stop doing it. I'm serious. Just stop.
It's not so easy.
I know. And it's not easy at the beginning, because we've got a habit.
Yes.
And body habits also they start to create emotional connections with us. And then when we start to emotionally rely on whatever tick we're doing to feel good. And clearing the throat is a perfect example, where it's not just it's just not a physical thing. It is physical, but we start to get used to it. We start to feel comfortable with it, and it starts to become part of our daily feeling normal. Okay, so sometimes we think, particularly with voices, that we have to do something to solve the problem. And very often and I would like to recommend this to anybody, and particularly for singers, and particularly with this phenomenon. And there's a lot more, but here's a perfect example. You don't have to do anything. What you have to do is start to undo what you're already doing to get back to a healthy balance. Start to undo what's moving and become a habit, is to undo that. Now, how do we do that? Okay, here's a simple trick. And once again, this wonderful doctor, he was just a local HNO guy, and he said, here's what I want you to do. He said, every day when you clear your throat, make a little X on a piece of paper. Every time, but be honest, every time you do it, make an X. And he said, and maybe you'll have 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 times that you do it, but every time, please make an X. So I did, and then he said, and then the next day, just clear your throat as much as you want, but just see if at the end of the day you can have 5 X's less than the day before. And the third day, see if you can have 5 X's less than you had the second day. And just keep on going, and it's a silly but brilliant little trick to get you to start thinking about what you're doing to yourself, and to kind of help you to just gently start becoming more and more aware of what you're doing, and to give you a way to kind of take one little baby step after the other one backwards, not forwards, backwards. Well, I did this. I had 40 X's my first day. I remember some people have 80, some people have 30, whatever. And I sang for 2 weeks full, big, open, free sounds in singing lessons. I mean, I let it out. I didn't protect anything. I didn't sing soft. I let it out for those 2 weeks, but at the same time, every day I did less and less clearing of my throat. I went back 2 weeks later. He looked in. He said, "They're all gone.
Wow.
They're all gone." Not because I did something to solve the problem, but I stopped doing that which causes the problem. It's a simple little principle. We see it all the time with voices. We don't need, there's a lot of problems that come up, and a lot of the solutions are not really solutions, but just stop doing it, which creates the problem. And if we look at what those things are, we can find a way to stop it. Now, here's some practical advice. Let's say you do feel that and you're uncomfortable and it's driving you crazy because Mark said, don't clear your throat.
Yes.
Don't do this. Well, how do we clear our throat then without doing this violent rubbing? Well, there's a little trick. And there's a way, and there's a good way. And I always say, but watch out, it sounds really impolite. And you don't want to do this in mixed company, as we used to say. Don't do it in mixed company. Don't do it at cocktail parties. Do it in the privacy of your own bathroom. But it works, and it really helps to get that feeling that something is wrong, and it helps to clear it up. And that is to do what we call the false chords, or the ventricular bands, and let them to kind of come together with some air pressure. And we have this sound. We don't have this, where the chords are rubbing. We have this. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows that. And you do it with lots of energy. And you go really, really far back in your throat, as far as you can go, and let it. Yeah, and don't do it. No family members, no friends, no cocktail parties, no banquets. This is just for you alone, because people will go, oh my God. But it's very effective in helping to really clear the throat, get whatever, if there's any kind of gunk in the slime that's going on in the pharynx, it helps to really push it out, or it is an explosive with air pressure to get it out, and your vocal cords then stay free and healthy. Mm-hmm. So that's the situation, and the two tricks are to gradually just every time make a little X, and every day just try to do a fewer and fewer X's. Not all at once, gradually taper off. And the second is to do this. We might call it homfing or hawking, or maybe you have another word for it. It's that ugly, impolite sound, which is so effective to really clear your throat. And do that instead of the other one, and you'll be a lot better off. Trust me.
Thank you very much. That's
yes,
a
ma'am.
Great tip, but it's very challenging, actually. I think it's a challenge because it is an addiction, and some of us are allergic to some stuff, and there is some
Yes.
junk running down from the nose, and so that's a real challenge. But thank you. I'll try. However, before we stop,
All right.
I consulted Webster's dictionary, and then I read up on the words hawk and harumph. And you knew the word harumph with a different meaning that Webster also cites,
Yes.
and I would love for you to do the Webster harumph.
Well, my understanding of harumph comes
Yes.
from my childhood is
Thank you. No,
which also might be good. I don't
I think it actually is helpful.
Yeah, it could be good.
And that is well, I guess you can more easily get away with that in public.
That's right. That's right.
But I don't know. Anyway, thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to the next tip.
Okay.